Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today, James Thompson, is a returning guest to the show. You might remember NFP Sports. He's the president and CEO, and he is back, and things are better than ever. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
For those who might not be familiar or haven't seen the show, NFP Sports, tell us what it is. We're all about the apps today, right?
Absolutely. So NFP Sports stands for National Fundraising Partners. We started out raising money for high school sports teams. And in 2 short years since we've been here last, we have now grown into helping entire athletic departments raise money for their entire school. So the need has grown, and we're answering that need.
It's not just a sport. It's not just a school. It's a whole school, all the sports, and even, we'll get into this later, but an entire conference of schools, right?
Correct. And it happened very fast. So basically, we've been raising individual sports teams at high schools money for, I've been part of it for 16 years. NFP Sports has been doing it since 2009. So I got point blank by one of the athletic directors at one of our schools. He basically said, if you can raise my high school football team $10,000, why can't you do the same for my entire athletic department? And I said, well, quite frankly, we haven't been asked to do that. So he said, could you do it? And that question led to getting very busy.
Did you give an immediate answer? Or did you have to think about it? Or?
To be honest, I did think on it for a while. I slept on it for, I would say, a couple days and really mulled it over.
Here's the thing. It's probably a little bit easier to do a more high-profile sport like football or basketball, but when you start getting into the sports that have less of a profile in the community, in the school even, it makes your job tougher, right?
It does, and you really have to know how to frame your introduction to the sponsors because, you know, certain sponsors might be into different sports, and you never know nowadays. It's not just football. There's a lot of awareness for other sports. So when you're going in for the entire athletic department, you have to sell the vision of helping all teams.
Guys
it's
sports,
a really
girls
different
sports.
message. Yeah, it's been very specific up until now. We go in, we actually run a program for football or baseball or soccer. Now we're going in and saying globally we're trying to help X high school in their athletic programs. So that's the difference of the message.
And we should back up and kind of just explain, and Steve in the second segment will be able to do this as well, but schools and budgets for sports, they're not infinite. There's not just an endless supply of funding that comes in for this. They have to raise money somehow, right?
No, and it's changed very quickly in my opinion because, you know, pay for play started years ago. It's nothing new. A lot of schools have it, some still do not. But regardless of pay to play, what you find out is there's always a need. And so we started to get approached by more and more athletic directors. We weren't point blank quite the way I was at that one meeting.
Can you do this for the whole athletic department? Wow.
Exactly. And it was out of frustration because there was other companies that were attempting to fulfill the need and doing a subpar job according to this particular athletic director. So we agreed based on the need that was there, and we kind of said, well, if there's a need, we'll fill it and we'll figure it out as we go. And you know, that was, I think, in May of the 2015 school year, and here we are. And less than a year later, we have 16 schools with sports marketing contracts and an entire conference.
So you were last on 2014. And as we mentioned, things were you were just kind of getting started. Things are very different now, right?
Very different, yes. So we are now really expanding our offerings. So our traditional business model was to put together 7 to 10 day campaigns that raised anywhere from $50 to $100 per athlete. And the average team sizes were 50 to 100. Now we're raising money for entire athletic departments. And we're approaching the business community for their support and help, but it's all based on a very diverse platform that centers around a mobile application platform. And that has been the biggest change for us, is getting into mobile apps was an unforeseen turn for us, and it really is expanding our business rapidly to the point where trying to scale it, meaning hire people, has been the biggest challenge for us.
The technology exists and it's only going to march forward, and you are nowhere if you do not have an app these days, right?
Absolutely. And it's amazing that when I first got into it, we saw the mobile app as a way to simply promote sponsors that were willing to write a check to a school. But it's so much larger than that. When you look at what social media has done by way of communication, there's also the back end of that. How many stories have you read about student athletes getting in trouble through social media? So when you deal with coaches and athletic directors, they're looking for a way to communicate with their community without having to engage in social media. I don't know a coach or an athletic director or administrator, for that matter, that would like to be on Facebook. Some are, most are not. So what we are able to do is...
They're not cool.
Well, I don't think they're worried about being cool so much, but I think it's the liability of there's just nothing good that can come from it. But they need to communicate, and they need to, the big word, in recent years is engagement. You hear that word a lot. Well, they want to engage with the community. So what we offer is a mobile application platform that allows them to provide information about their entire athletic department and communicate through a secure channel, meaning when they send out a push notification about a game being rescheduled or a practice being rescheduled due to weather, it's not on Twitter. It doesn't need to be commented on or retweeted.
It's just providing information, and by push notification, probably come via text, right? That's the most immediate.
It shows up on their phone.
Right.
People have to enable that feature in order for it to show up. But most people that download the mobile app are downloading it for that reason.
Yeah, you want it.
Absolutely.
Other things on it for not just the getting the word out, but things like scores, game times, dates, everything, rosters, you name it, it could be on there.
GPS navigation to opponents.
Oh,
how many times
that's
has a
useful.
parent, gone to the school website and printed off directions to the opposing school? I mean, this is 2016.
I would like to know what the hot
arcane.
dog prices at Griswold High School are. I want to know that before I get there, but we'll get into that too. But I mean, it has everything on it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So is this an app that's available now at this point?
The mobile apps are free.
Okay.
So what happens is when we launch them, they have very easy naming conventions. The first one that we launched was for Fitch High School, and it very simply is Fitch Falcons Athletics. You can go on to either the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and just plug that in.
Right.
It'll come up for free download.
And when you do Android and iOS, you're pretty much covering about 90-something% of cell phones, so you're covered there.
Correct.
Yeah. So they either have an iPhone or an Android phone, and they're good to go. And it's a free app, and it sounds like it's so useful. And it seems like it could expand to grow even more as far as providing information.
It already is, because our original features were the GPS navigation, the game schedules, the rosters, the coaches directory, which is very handy for parents that want to call a coach. Normally that would go through the athletic department, and the athletic director's getting a phone call really relaying a message to the coach. Now there's direct access right to that coach through the mobile app. And then obviously promoting the sponsors. And then there's a feature on the mobile app called the Fan Cam, and it allows people to take pictures during the game, submit it, get approved by the athletic department, and then it gets put into a gallery that's called Fan Shots. And it's amazing how many pictures we see get uploaded to that.
Absolutely, because if you think about what people do with their own Instagram accounts or Facebook pages, they're taking selfies all the time with their phone. That's the number one feature of the phone, taking selfies.
Absolutely.
So they're taking pictures of what's going on at a game, put them up through the app. It's fantastic.
Yes.
We are almost out of time. Do you want to give out your website to NFP Sports so people can learn more?
Absolutely. Our local website is cteast.nfpsports.com, and our overall brand website is simply nfpsports.com.
And one more time, to search either the App Store on iTunes or Google Play. What do they search for to get the app, to download it?
Well, each individual school has their app, but for the conference, they would search for Eastern Connecticut, spelled out, Athletics, Eastern Connecticut Athletics, and it's a free download on the App Store.
It's a great idea. We're out of time for your segment because we got so many people to talk to today, but thank you for being on the show again. Good luck. Many happy returns for you.
Excellent.
James Thompson, NFP Sports President and CEO. We'll take a short break and come right back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. Up next, number 2, Griswold High School Athletic Director's name is Steve Crovino. It is his first time on the show. So we welcome him to the show. Thanks for being on.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So we continue our conversation from a athletic director's point of view when we were talking about the NFP Sports app that had to come out and your involvement with getting, generating funds, whatever you can. So let's talk about it a little bit, wherever you'd like to start.
Well, it was a kind of a league initiative where we went to NFP, and they proposed a lot of different marketing strategies for us, and then it kind of out of that, we, as individual schools, we decided I think it would be a good idea to jump on the mobile app process, and immediately I thought of it as a way to communicate with parents, faculty members, community members, just to give updated information about a lot of things, from schedules to events.
You weren't even thinking about that other stuff, like for the general public to learn about games and times and stuff like that. You were almost thinking just about an easier way for you to communicate with your colleagues, right?
Exactly. I get messages all the time about what time's the game tonight, and I refer them to the mobile app.
Yeah, instead of answering the same question 5,000 times,
correct.
You can. Now, does the app come in? Must come in handy when these snowstorms are coming through, right? That's got to be huge.
Absolutely, it's a great way to send those messages as soon as I know a game has changed and I have a definite time.
So it's a much more of a last-minute thing if you need it to be, right?
Right, and it's convenient.
Yeah, that's the key. And like we said in the first segment, if you're not messing around with an app, then you are just behind as far as technology goes, right?
Right, and I'm using it primarily for that, but I down in the future I can see where when we get more sponsors, the exposure to the everybody's got a phone. If they have that app on there, they can get their name seen.
They can stay plugged in, right? They can get their name seen. They can be a sponsor or just get information out. And this can only grow, it can only expand, it can only get bigger. Very interesting to me was the fact that it started out, James mentioned, with a sport. Then it started out with a whole athletic department of a school. That includes boys and girls sports, right?
Correct. Yeah, all sports are included.
How many sports at a typical? How about a Griswold High School?
We have about 20 sports that we sponsor, and some that are how do I want to say, some are pay to play.
Yeah.
Some of the newer sports like lacrosse, they fund themselves.
And that's a sport that's growing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. What is it about that just the kids are loving? They're playing more soccer now. They're playing more lacrosse. It's not that baseball and football and everything, they're still there, but there are these other options for them.
That's just it. I think it's just another option. It's something new. And whether baseball or softball is not their thing, or track, lacrosse provides a pretty good option to be active and engaged with students. And
now, as athletic director of Griswold High, do you need to be somewhat technically savvy? I mean, you don't really have to be to use the app, but you need the phone or the iPad or the tablet or whatever, and you need to know basically what to do with apps, how to provide the information in the first place, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a genius, but
you work at a school, so let's say you have to be a genius.
I have several platforms that I use, from iPads to my phone, and I use my phone quite a bit.
You embrace the technology, right?
I do, and I think that's the way to go.
Because sometimes you'll hear somebody from a school say, well, get pen and paper and write in cursive and,
Yeah, well, if you've ever seen my office, the paper stuff is not good for me.
Is that right? So you got to be organized with the technology.
I do everything electronic if I can.
So where do you think this could go? How big could this get? What other avenues can you see? We know James had a lot of thoughts on where it could go, but from a school's perspective.
I think there's just a tremendous potential for creating sponsorships and raising money to support the athletic program.
That's key.
As a whole, individual programs can jump on with some fundraisers that they would want to do individually. But I think as an athletic department, there's such a up 395. There's a lot of businesses and there's a lot of
untapped potential up there, right?
Exactly.
Now, as a school administrator and the athletic director of a school, do you see the tightening of the belt, the way the economy is, the necessity for pay for play as opposed to having the town fund the sports? I mean, it's the way life is now, right?
Yeah, it's tough, and budgets are fluctuating year to year. so you really never know what you're going to have. And sometimes it's not till the beginning of the school year before you have a finalized budget. And we do the best we can with what we have, and then we look for other ways to fund things. And like, coaches are on top of some of that stuff, and I'm trying to get them involved with NFP as well.
Is this the future? Is this a way of
Absolutely.
revenue stream that's probably
Absolutely.
a necessity in some cases, right?
Absolutely. Things aren't getting cheaper.
Right.
And we need
Budgets
to find,
aren't growing; they're getting cut more, right?
Exactly. So, we need to be a little proactive before it gets to the point where we're charging each kid to play a sport.
Yeah.
Which that could have it could be. We could lose a lot of kids that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And depending on what town the school is in, if there's a lot of underprivileged kids or low-income families, they're not going to be able to participate if they have to pay for it themselves.
Right. Yeah, especially if they have more than one kid in the school system. And so this, I think, is the way to go for the future. And
well, you are getting an endorsement from a high school athletic director, so it's on the up and it's only going to grow and get bigger. What's going on at Griswold High School? Anything we should know about before we wrap up the segment?
We're coming to the end of the winter sports season. We have everybody's qualified for the postseason.
Oh, good.
And just looking forward to the spring season.
Yeah, and nicer weather too.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
All right. Is there a website for Griswold High that you want to give, or any website out in particular?
There's a Griswold K12.ct.
I'll tell you, we'll make it easy.
It's on my.
We're going to make it easy for you by having the graphic up on the screen right now. So there you go. Steve Cravino, Griswold High School Athletic Director, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll take one more break, come right back, because we have another guest to get to. So I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay right there. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My third guest for this fantastic show so far that's moving right along, Susan Dombrowski. She is the Director of Marketing and PR for Core Plus Federal Credit Union, and I believe it is your first time on the show as well.
It is. That's correct. Thanks for having me, Sean.
You are very welcome, and you are a sponsor.
I am.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about you first, okay, and your background and how you got to where you are now. So start all the way back at the beginning. No, I'm kidding.
Well, we don't have that much time.
I know.
But as a student athlete in my high school days, way back when, I remember how important it was to have those opportunities to play. And my folks were not in a position to be doing pay for play. I'm very aware that town budgets are getting cut. I am a member of the Board of Finance in my town of Franklin, so I'm very conscious that the students don't have the same opportunities that we think they should. So Core Plus has taken it upon themselves to be one of the sponsors of the ECC athletics overall.
Right, and that's a big deal because it's amazing how when we first started and James first started, it was one school, one sport, and it has grown to an entire conference now. And around these parts, the ECC is a big deal.
It's huge. It is, and what our sponsorship with the ECC allows us to do is send a little bit of support to each of the schools. With 9 locations in Eastern Connecticut, Core Plus services 22,000 members. We're spread over about 25 towns. We really run from East Lyme up to Putnam across the whole 395 corridor. So the sponsorship of the ECC schools allows us to show love to the Vikings down in East Lyme and the Panthers or whatever they have up north.
It's perfect. The geography works out perfect for where your locations are with the ECC. I mean, it's a match made in heaven, right?
It sure is. And by sponsoring the athletics in all of the schools, that really gets us in the door. It gets us the visibility that as a sponsor we desire, and it shows that indeed we are committed to the community that we live in.
Now, you say a little bit goes to each school, and then they kind of decide from that point how it gets allocated throughout their athletic departments?
Yeah, what we do is we write one big check.
Right.
And it's not the hugest check in the world. It's a lot to us.
Yeah.
Credit unions are not-for-profit organizations, so as we perform well, we're able to send some of that money back out into support of the community. So we send it to NFP Sports, trusting that James and his team, working with the athletic directors in the schools, are going to make the best decisions.
And you know that he's doing a great job because just from what has happened from the beginning to now, when a school administrator says, okay, if you can do it for one sport, can you do a whole athletic department? You're like, wow, you know?
Absolutely. Not every student athlete is going to go to Rutgers on a full scholarship.
Right.
So that's where Core Plus comes in with offering options and products and services that can make it affordable.
And have people commented? Have they made any noticed you as far as the sponsorship with ECC?
Absolutely. Not only are we a part of their app and their technology on their website and on their different social medias, but we actually, as part of our sponsorship, get to have a tabletop at some of the events. So I heard you talking before about how
Hot dogs? Oh no. Okay.
No, yeah, I know you're on the hot
I know.
dogs.
Wait,
The
get off it.
focus seems to be in the schools on the bigger sports, so on the
Right.
boys football, on some schools girls basketball. But where we've found the most success in our partnership is with sort of the underrepresented sports. And that's where we are able to have a table at a sporting event, at a tournament, hand out information and freebies out to people and get exposure. We had so much fun last year at the girls' cheerleading competition.
They take that very seriously.
It is a serious
Yeah.
sport, absolutely.
Ask any mother of a daughter who's in cheerleading, or
Yeah.
son for that matter too. They kind of live vicariously through them a little
Yeah,
bit too.
absolutely. They are definitely athletes.
Yeah.
And it's something that we can support everybody. I don't have the money to spend, to send $1,000 to each of 5 football teams and say that's it. But what we can do is show support to the entire conference.
And sometimes the money to the smaller sport, to the lesser known sports, actually goes a longer way. Football, to run a football team is very expensive for any school. Maybe not so much for a lesser sport. I don't know. Maybe swimming doesn't cost as much. Who knows? So you're doing good no matter where the money goes within the conference.
Absolutely. We're doing good for the students, for the families, the community, and we're not entirely benevolent about
Right.
this. We are definitely sponsors because we want that exposure.
You're raising your own profile too.
Absolutely. 2016 is big for Core Plus, all about re-imaging ourselves. We're launching a new logo. We've rebranded our website. So it's about getting our new look out there as well.
I'm sorry, did you want to get into the demo of the student as well? Is that something that, did they spend money? Did they have bank accounts?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. There's a couple of things that really ingrain us in the schools and with the educational community. Number one is we were originally founded as the Teachers Credit Union. So we are still in the schools. The administrators, the janitors, the bus drivers are all members of Core Plus in many instances. So that's great. And we're showing them that we're indeed still committed to that segment. Secondly, we do have products and services that are specifically designed to help young adults. So we have Check 24, which is a young adult checking account that goes to college with the students. And we have CU Student Choice, which is a college financing program. What's so important about that is we go out into the community, into schools, and run college financing nights. So it's how to prepare, pay, and stay in school. We're educating families how to fill out that free application for federal student aid, how to select a school that makes sense for them, how to use scholarships and grants. So if there are athletic scholarships to be had, this is where those are going to come in, but not every kid is going to get that.
Yeah. But you are where the students are and where the parents are, and everybody, like we said in the other segment, everybody has an app. So aside from your own app, the Core Plus app, the NFP app, you're on that, and that's where the people are at.
Absolutely. So a great example of our partnership with NFP just came into effect last week. We ran 2 of these seminars at local schools in the evening. I sent over the information to James. He and his tech team pushed it out to all of the parents, anybody who's basically enrolled in their app. So not only does that get our pertinent information in front of the eyes that need to see it, it helps people to realize that we are a part of the schools and the educational and the youth, and it gives us some credibility as well.
And the community, yeah.
And the community, sure.
Absolutely. We are just about out of time, so I want to give you the opportunity to give a Core Plus website out.
Thanks,
so
I
people
will.
can go.
Yep, we can be found online at www.coreplus.org.
Susan Dombrowski, Director of Marketing and PR for the Core Plus Federal Credit Union, and happily involved with the NFP Sports mobile app. It's a great idea. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Sean.
Have you on next time for a longer segment. Okay?
I hope so.
These guys took up most of your time.
That's all right.
That is our show for today. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube sites. Till next time, I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Take care.